Hey everyone, today we're going to be ranking all of the Dead by Daylight killers from least to most powerful. This isn't in terms of gameplay, but instead lore-wise, abilities and their powers. We're going to put them into one of four tiers. The lowest being strong but powerless tier, the second being the supernatural or magical tier, the third being the powerful superhuman tier, and the final tier being godlike beings or the unlimited power tier. Let's get into it. Okay, so starting off with the strong but powerless tier. Okay, so going into our first tier of strong but powerless, we have the Legion. Legion is probably the least powerful group of characters, as a bunch of inexperienced teens whose power is basically just very effective stabbing, that they then get stunned by after exiting their power. Also, they can run at the speed of a normal person. Yeah, these are the most human killers in the sense of having nothing too special about them. The entity has seemingly weaponized their rage, and turned it into a method of allowing them to stab better, so they're the weakest, I think. But hey, there are four of them, which is for sure an advantage. Trickster is up next as a character who doesn't necessarily have a power, but is skilled with knives and how he throws them, only requiring 6 to injure someone. He also has his neon bat with a razor edge. He comes a little above the Legion here due to his agility and how he could just sit back from a range and just pepper out his knives. He has somewhat of a skill more so than just simply stabbing. So yeah, a little higher here for Trickster, although broadly he is just a guy with knives and a bat, so not too powerful. Bubba honestly gets ahead a lot of the others because he has a chainsaw, and you know, a lot of these people can't really counter that, to be honest. He's also shown in the film to be incredibly strong and take down a person with a single swing of his hammer. That's all I can really say for Bubba. He's a big strong guy with a chainsaw, so strength, but also a pretty effective, or two pretty effective weapons, making him somewhat powerful when it comes to the more physically normal human characters. He is quite reckless though, and not all too strategic, which is definitely a downside. Clown is very physically strong, his lore mentioning that he used to be quite an impressive athlete before he fell into drinking and other bad habits, so we can assume that physically Clown is still pretty strong, to be honest. Not only that, but Clown has specially mixed anesthetics and muscle relaxants, which he's perfected in the Afterpiece tonic, his power. This tonic that he's said to be resistant to is also going to give him an even larger strength advantage over whoever he's facing. He's also got those speed up bottles if he wants to walk 5% faster, I guess. One thing worth mentioning though is that in his lore he's mentioned to be sloppy and careless with how he goes about killing, potentially suggesting he's not exactly going to be completely efficient, a bit like Bubba. He's a bit higher here though due to having his bottles as well. Pig, despite her smaller stature and generally weaker physicality, comes above the two beefy boys of Bubba and Clown, as she has a much higher degree of intelligence and strategy, also just having the advantage of stealth. Amanda has her reverse bear traps, which when placed onto someone's head is surely going to cause a panic, as if she were to rig one of these, we can safely assume that she can pretty much just insta-kill anyone she wanted, especially with her ability to crouch and stealth, ambushing her victim and trapping them before returning to the shadows. She doesn't have anything supernatural, but her kit is what purely makes her powerful. With a helping hand from her stealth, she could take down people who were physically stronger for sure. So her kit and intelligence make her somewhat powerful. Finally in this tier we have Ghostface, who has a questionable supernatural element to him. It seems like in the realm his stealth has a kind of magical element to it, as his little tassels on his costume float around in the air ominously. But yeah, aside that, in the lore, Ghosty is kind of really good at killing. He's super meticulous and writes about his own murders as he commits them in the local paper, basically showing off his own work. So this guy has definitely maxed out his sneak stats, more so than Pig I would say too. This level of planning, and the many towns he stays undetected in despite being so obvious, makes Ghosty the most powerful killer out of all the powerless killers. Okay, moving on to the supernatural or magical tier. Starting off here we have the twins. The twins in their current state seem to have some kind of magical power, which is basically Victor's eternal regrowing and resurrection. The two of these are also survivors at heart and have been fighting their entire lives to simply survive. That's from children all the way up to about their mid-20s. At least for Charlotte, making them good survivors as things go. Now with their new ability to eternally resurrect Victor, they are going to be kinda powerful as a tag team. Charlotte is incredibly strong, but sure, slow. Yet Victor is incredibly quick, but weak, sure. So together they're actually very powerful, honestly, despite them appearing otherwise. Next in this tier we have the Doctor, a character who isn't really supernatural, but his magic comes in his specialized science of electroshock therapy, as he's created the ability to effectively fire waves of electricity out of his fingertips, which you know is by no means normal. This guy is also super brutal, he's also quite intelligent and meticulous, or like Ghostface, except Doctor doesn't even really care about getting caught, making him arguably more deadly. Also, there's the whole element of his power that can cause screams, hallucinations, and more. Primarily due to his shock power though, and his advanced knowledge of it too, Doctor is pretty powerful. Deathslinger is pretty much a regular person, but is carried by his intelligence, and also that he can do stuff at a range, which I think makes him a little more powerful. He's not supernatural or magical to any degree, but again it's kind of his intelligence that carries him into this tier. Think of him almost like the cowboy Iron Man, whose intelligence can equal that of actual supernatural power. He's not like the Doctor who has to get close and up in your face. Slinger relies on his genius inventions, mainly the spear gun, a weapon that can do some serious damage. Through his career as what was basically a bounty hunter, Caleb became feared, his weapon allowing him to fire at outlaws, pin and injure them before dragging them into Hellshire Penitentiary. If anyone does get close, he does also have his bayonet. I think if given the time to, he can invent something even more powerful. His genius and his capability with his own handcrafted weapons I think puts him high up the power list despite him having nothing supernatural or magical in his possession. I think he perfectly fits in with the people who do. Plague is a character that has the power of a deadly plague, her green plague weakening people and her red plague injuring people. This is a plague, remember, that withered down a city with ease, and in game, with the entity's influence, can instantly injure someone with about 10 seconds of contact with it. This stuff can also seemingly be eternally produced by the plague. Her main downside honestly is that she likely has the least effective weapon aside the plague itself, which is her sensor. Aside that though, plague wields a literal plague, making her quite powerful. Wraith has quite a basic set of abilities, but ones that are by no means weak. He first off seems to have a slightly greater strength than a regular person, capable of tearing his boss's spine out after killing him in the lore. Further, his greater speed whilst he is cloaked, not quite to the extent of someone like Hillbilly, but still quite substantial. Then his ability to cloak and go near invisible, ringing a bell to come in and out of this. This makes him incredibly stealthy as well as quick and also strong, and so overall quite powerful. Nurse, despite her withered appearance, is still powerful due to her telekinetic ability and the fact that she can almost instantly arrive at any location she wants with her blink ability, which is an ability that briefly allows her to break into an alternate plane before returning to the main one, where she can then land and attack. Her telekinetic ability can allow her the same strength as other killers' full force kicks or punches when breaking pallets or breakable walls. She can also carry a survivor and hook them without ever touching them, showing just how powerful this telekinesis is. Her blinks also exemplify how quick she can be and also precise too, honestly, making her power-wise quite powerful. Okay, on to powerful superhumans. Starting off, we have Hillbilly. A lot like Bubba, Billy gets a decent amount of power right off from his strength, but also the fact he's wielding a chainsaw and a cattle hammer, two pretty effective weapons. Not only this, but Billy is stated by Benedict Baker to be capable of running at superhuman speeds, which of course we can see in game 2. In his tome lore, he also takes a bullet wound, multiple dog bites and more, and he still comes out relatively uninjured. He has resistant skin, greater strength, and higher speed than a normal person. His main downside is his lack of strategy, but through sheer force he could overpower a lot of other killers, I think, for example. Trapper's main ability comes from his pain resistance, a thing we can see from the hooks that puncture his skin. We also know that Trapper is pretty strong just from the fact that he is one of few killers that actually have fought directly back against the entity. His base body cosmetic reads, "The hooks dig deep into the flesh, the pain giving way to pure rage." This suggests that he works somewhat like the Hulk does, where the more pain that he experiences, the more rage and power he gains, or the stronger he gets. There is something, however, that makes him stand out against many of the other physically strong characters. Trapper is also a good strategist, with his power requiring such. He's also known to have fought and killed bears, evidenced by his bear skull mask that he wears, and also that his power is bear traps, so again, brute strength makes him pretty damn powerful. Blight in the lore is someone whose life work amounts to the production of a serum for the purpose of pain resistance. He then goes on to try and search for the entity's realm after he's shown the mass grave of those who died for him to make his serum. Blight serum is stated in his add-ons to be perfected, so we can assume these factors of pain resistance are going to be pretty extreme. We also know from the Hallowed Blight cutscenes that the serum increases increases the person's strength who uses it. Where Trapper is locked up, he manages to break his chains after using the serum. This means that Blight is likely pretty strong and also incredibly fast, with barely any cooldown or slowdown points. His main weakness is probably his fairly weak weapon. Even going against some of the stronger characters though, Blight should be fine as he's got immense pain resistance, strength, and also an undeniable relentlessness as he searches for more orange plant. Huntress is the most powerful character in my opinion in terms of the more regular-esque humans. She's just basically super amped up and highly trained through her years of survival out in the Red Forest. She's said in the lore to have taken down multiple squadrons of soldiers, massacred whole towns, and killed anyone who entered into her territory, all to the extent of making her a living legend in the surrounding areas. With her incredibly precise hatchets and her ability to hunt and kill those who face her, despite only wielding an axe and hatchet, Huntress is pretty powerful without really having any true powers aside extra strength and speed. Huntress is a bit higher here than Trapper mainly because she can just stand at a range, and if she were to do so, she could probably defeat someone like him. Hag is likely a person you least expect to be up this high, but she is because she has one of the most substantial magical or supernatural powers in her hexes, which can seemingly kill people, increase personal luck, and more. From what it seems, all of the hex perks in the game are simply a combination of Hag's powers mixed with the entities, and then bestowed upon different hex totems and killers. This means we can safely assume that Hag can harness all the different kinds of powers that the hexes hold. Alongside her powerful magic, Hag is also incredibly agile despite her posture and can slip away undetected with ease. Although Hag isn't overpowering anyone with brute strength, although she might be able to take down a few normal people evidenced by her killing of her captors, she is going to be powerful in regard to her magic, hexing those who try and catch or attack her, and evading, slowly withering them down. Spirit is the first character on this list up to this point which I think is actually immortal as a spirit. She is a ghost and therefore immortal or unkillable, at least by the means of something mortal. As the spirit is likely based off of the Japanese Onryo in folklore, she is effectively an immortal, vengeful spirit that is capable of causing harm to the living. Spirit also has the ability to phase, which I imagine even in real life you wouldn't be able to counter. She can disappear and then pop up in an instant without you ever seeing her. Even with someone like Huntress, it could be hard to face Spirit as she does her passive phases too, making it hard to hit her. Her weapon, her retractable katana, is also good for quick movement and can be summoned when necessary. The Demo is an unspecified monster from another dimension that is seemingly a servant to the Mind Flayer, a being pretty similar to the Entity. Demo's skin is impenetrable by bullets or knives. It has razor-sharp teeth and claws and can leap at superhuman, well not human, but crazily quick speeds. It can also tunnel between dimensions through portals which it can plant wherever it goes. The Demo in the show tears through hallways full of soldiers with ease, only falling at the hands of Eleven and her magic. So yeah, Demo is pretty strong and also a good boy. The Nemesis is probably the most powerful character who is entirely biological and doesn't have anything supernatural involved. Nemesis as an adaptive bioweapon controlled by the Nemesis alpha parasite. This allows Nemesis to be intelligent, wield weapons, and also adapt to its environments. During Resident Evil 3, Nemesis gets battered by all kinds of things like rockets, falling buildings, and is soaked in acid, and each time he comes back stronger and adapted for how he was last defeated. He is killed by the end of the game by Jill with use of an experimental railgun, but even then it's unclear if he's actually dead. He's then seemingly eviscerated by a falling nuke on Racoon City, but again it's not clear if he was ever completely destroyed. A few of you have told me that he actually does survive this and adapts to that also, but by then of course Jill is long gone from the city. Basically this guy is pretty insane in terms of power and all from biological means, making it quite impressive. Okay, finally moving on to the unlimited power tier. We're gonna start off with Freddy. Freddy is somewhat hard to calculate in terms of his strength as he's a dream demon and so he's technically not even alive and only exists in people's dreams. This does mean though that he is alive basically because it also appears that he can affect people as long as they are asleep, and of course everyone has to sleep eventually. That's kind of the whole concept of the film in fact. This also means that he's immortal. He's a little lower than the other typically more considered powerful beings on here, as he is seemingly killed by Quentin and Nancy in A Nightmare on Elm Street, however non-permanent that is. He was still technically toppled by two 17-year-olds, even if it was brief. But hey, being a dream demon is still kinda a big deal. Myers is described as purely and simply evil by his doctor, Dr. Loomis. He's also often regarded as the the shape of evil itself. That's what he represents. So with that in mind, he is kind of unkillable and cannot be rid of, as there is always going to be evil within the world in some form, and as long as there is, there will always be Michael Myers. The only reason why I don't think he's quite as high as the others, despite his immense power and his invulnerability, is that in the 2018 sequel to the original 1978 Halloween, he is in fact shown to age like a regular person does. This means that although Michael may be some insanely powerful being, he does also have the same timer that every other human has, possibly before that evil then finds someone else to fill the body of. My point being that he's human and therefore mortal and not immortal. Next up we have the Oni, a character who in Japanese folklore is said to be almost as powerful as gods and even face up to them in some circumstances. They're said to be invincible and undefeatable, and apparently sorcerers also. Seemingly from Oni's blue skin, he is a full-blown Oni and not just a guy wearing an Oni costume. So not only is he powerful and immortal, but throughout his lore we learn that he's an insanely good fighter, cutting through many samurai and towns full of people. And this is all whilst he is still technically human. There's also the whole factor of his strategy and military experience, making him even more formidable. With his new blood rage and immortality, he is for sure one of the most powerful characters currently in the game. Executioner is our most powerful being, as a character who is possibly as powerful or maybe even more so than the entity itself. Pyramid Head is somewhat more of a concept than a real being. In the context of DBD's lore, he embodies punishment or the need for punishment. From what we know, he is immortal, originally spawned from the mind of James Sunderland. He appears to have been realized as a living creature capable of fulfilling this task of punishment to many and not just James. In Silent Hill, he is unkillable and immovable and again immortal. He is definitely magical and supernatural to degrees that aren't particularly clear. Many believe that Pyramid Head's place in the entity's realm is to punish the entity itself by disrupting its trials and doing things his own way with cages and the shorter moris. Alright, well, that's gonna do it. I do hope you enjoyed, and please do drop your own thoughts down below. Thanks, and goodbye.